The first time Shin Hae-won saw him, he was sitting alone in the last row of the classroom, hood up, arms crossed, staring out the window as if the world inside Hanseo High didn't matter. His name was Lee Joon-ha, transfer student, 18 years old. No clubs, no introduction, no expression. And from that moment, everything in her perfectly controlled world began to unravel, because Hae-won had spent her entire life building a flawless reputation. Top grades, class monitor, always with her uniform pressed, hair tied up, and her voice polite. She lived by one simple rule: never give anyone a reason to punish you. So when her homeroom teacher called her aside after class and smiled that tight-lipped smile Hae-won had grown to fear, she already knew what was coming. Hae-won, dear, I'm assigning you to help Joon-ha adapt to the school. He seems withdrawn. I think your example could do him good. It wasn't a request. It never was. At first, Joon-ha said nothing to her. Literally, on Monday morning, she greeted him with a small bow outside the library. He looked at her, then walked away. On Tuesday, she offered him a campus map. He took it, never opened it. On Wednesday, she invited him to join the ethics class discussion group. He skipped it. By Thursday, she stood in front of his desk, arms crossed, eyes narrowed. I know you don't want to be here, but I do. So stop making this harder than it has to be. He looked up at her for the first time and smirked. Did it ever occur to you that not everyone wants to be perfect? She froze, then turned and walked away, cheeks burning. But for some reason, his words stuck. That weekend, Hae-won stayed up organizing the school's monthly volunteer report alone, while most of the class enjoyed the spring festival prep. The lights outside the school cast long shadows across the empty hallways. She was headed to the copy room when she heard music coming from the old auditorium. Curious, she stepped inside. There, under the dusty stage lights, was Joon-ha, sitting on a stool, strumming a guitar. Fingers slow, eyes closed, lost in sound. It didn't match anything about him. Not the hoodies, not the silence, not the rumors. He looked peaceful. She didn't mean to speak, but it slipped out. You play really well. He stopped, looked at her. I thought you'd be too busy following rules to wander in here. I finished early. He raised an eyebrow. Liar. She smiled for the first time around him. Maybe. He looked at her carefully, then gestured to the seat beside him. Want to try? She shook her head quickly. I don't play. But something in her voice cracked. He tilted his head. You sing, though. She stiffened. Who told you that? He shrugged. No one. I just know. She stared at him, and for the first time, she didn't know how to respond. The following week, she found herself gravitating toward him without realizing. She invited him to the literature club. He didn't say yes, but he showed up. She brought him lunch one day. He didn't thank her, but he ate it. He started showing up early to class. Started staying a little longer after the bell. He still didn't speak much to anyone else. But with her, he began to lower his guard. And little by little, Hae-won found herself laughing again. Really laughing. The kind that came from her chest, not her throat. One afternoon, they sat on the rooftop, the sun warming their backs. My mom tracks my grades weekly, she said softly. If I drop below 97, I lose my phone. He looked at her. That's insane. I used to think it was normal. He was quiet for a moment. My dad doesn't speak to me unless I win something. She turned her head. I'm sorry. He shrugged. It's easier to stay quiet than to disappoint people. She looked at him then, really looked, and saw herself. By the time the spring festival approached, everyone at school had noticed a change. Joon-ha started participating, not fully, but enough to confuse people. He helped paint backdrops, tuned instruments, sat with the literature club, even if he didn't read aloud. And when people whispered about it, they always looked at Hae-won. She tamed the wild transfer student. She's going to get a medal for this. She's probably trying to fix him. But she wasn't fixing anyone. She was simply seeing him and being seen. Then came the rumor. It started with a whisper in the hallway, a passing comment, a printed screenshot left on a classroom desk. Lee Joon-ha was expelled from his last school. Hae-won's stomach dropped. She confronted him after class, heart racing. Is it true? He didn't answer at first. Then, with a look she'd never seen on his face before, one of deep, quiet shame, he nodded. Yes. Her throat tightened. Why? He exhaled slowly. I hit someone. She blinked. Why? He looked at her. Because he touched my friend without permission. She said no. He didn't care. Silence. Hae-won looked down. The rule follower in her screamed at her to step back. That violence was violence. That punishment was punishment. But her heart knew what it was like to be trapped, to feel helpless. She looked up. Did anyone believe you? No. And in that moment, something inside her snapped. She stormed into the teacher's office the next day, demanding to know why they hadn't addressed the rumor, why no one protected the truth, why silence always won. The teachers blinked in surprise. Miss Shin, we didn't think you'd be the one to question school policy. Maybe it's time you stop assuming who I am. Later that week, she found Joon-ha on the stage again, tuning his guitar. She walked up, her heart pounding. Sing with me, she said. He looked at her. What? At the festival. One song. You and me. He hesitated. Are you sure? She stepped closer. No one needs to be perfect to be good. He stared at her, then nodded. When the festival arrived, the gym was packed. Lights. Cheers. Phones recording. Hae-won stood center stage, microphone in hand. Joon-ha sat beside her, guitar in lap. The music began, and together, voices trembling, then growing stronger, they sang. A song about not fitting in, about fear, about healing. When it ended, the crowd was silent. Then someone clapped. Then another. Then the gym exploded in applause. And in the middle of it all, Joon-ha leaned forward, gently cupped Hae-won's face and kissed her. No hiding, no shame, just truth, forgiven, and finally free. They kissed once, brief, barely longer than a breath, but the silence that followed was louder than any song. In the middle of the school gym, surrounded by classmates, teachers, and parents, all standing in stunned silence, Shin Hae-won felt the world tilt. Lee Joon-ha's hand was still on her cheek, warm, steady. Her heart was pounding so hard, she could barely hear the applause that followed, because in that instant, she wasn't the perfect student. She wasn't the model girl. She was just herself, and she had just kissed a boy who, according to school rumors, had been expelled for assault. The next day at school, the entire hallway felt like it was staring at them. Every classroom buzzed. Every group chat exploded. People asked if it was a performance, a stunt, a statement. Hae-won sat in her usual seat at the front of the room, chin held high, eyes focused forward. But she could feel the whispers behind her back like daggers. She kissed him? On stage. Does she even know what he did? She's just trying to be dramatic. What no one knew was how hard her hands were shaking under her desk. She didn't regret it, but she was scared. Joon-ha didn't come to school the next day, or the day after that. Rumors said he was suspended. Others said he'd been called into a private meeting with the vice principal. Some claimed his parents were forcing him to transfer again. Hae-won waited each morning by the gates, pretending to scroll through her phone, eyes scanning every student who entered. But he never came. On the third morning, she snapped. She marched straight to the admin office and demanded to know where he was. He's not suspended, the staff member replied, surprised. He just stopped coming. That evening, she found his address in the school database. She shouldn't have had access, but she was the class monitor, and she was done waiting. She walked 3 subway stops, climbed 4 flights of stairs, and stood in front of a worn apartment door with peeling paint and a broken doorbell. She knocked. No answer. Again. Nothing. Just as she turned to leave, the door creaked open. Joon-ha stood there, hoodie on, eyes red, silent. She stepped forward. You disappeared. He looked at her, voice low. I didn't want you to get dragged into this. She stared at him. I already was. A long pause. Do you regret it? He asked. Her throat tightened. The kiss? Or choosing you? He didn't answer. She did. No. But I hate how afraid you are being cared for. That broke him. He stepped aside. Come in. His apartment was small. 1 room. Stacks of books. A guitar in the corner. Sheet music taped to the walls. It smelled like instant noodles and cologne. She sat on the floor. He handed her tea. Neither spoke for a long time. Finally, he said, I thought if I stayed away, the noise would die down. Maybe people would forget. But I forgot one thing. What? You're the kind of person no one forgets. She looked at him, startled. Even before the kiss, he continued, you were the one who made me feel like I wasn't just surviving. She blinked. You were the one who gave me something to lose. Her heart thudded. You won't lose me, she whispered. You might. I won't. The next day, he returned to school. People stared. Again, but this time he didn't shrink. Hae-won walked beside him, shoulders aligned, not holding hands, not smiling, not giving the school anything to talk about, but making something clear. We're not hiding. At lunch, someone slipped a note onto her desk. It read, Good girls don't date guys like him. She folded it calmly and threw it in the trash. The next day, someone scrawled freak couple across Joon-ha's locker in red marker. He opened it anyway, took out his books, walked on, but it was building. Quiet resentment, silent pressure, and eventually it exploded. 1 week later, a meeting was called, a disciplinary review, the teacher called it, for inappropriate public behavior during a school event, meaning the kiss. Parents were invited. Hae-won's mother showed up in pearls and a tightly drawn smile. Joon-ha's guardian didn't come at all. They sat at the front of the room, facing 3 school officials, 2 teachers, the vice principal. The questions came fast. Did you plan the performance together? Were you trying to provoke the school's moral code? Was this a relationship you were hiding? Joon-ha stayed silent. Hae-won answered clearly. We perform because we care about music. We kiss because we care about each other. We didn't break any rules that applied to anyone else in this school. The vice principal leaned forward. You understand the image this projects? Hae-won didn't flinch. An image of honesty? Yes. They were put on probation. No official punishment. Just a note in their records. A warning. Her mother didn't speak to her for 2 days. Then, on the 3rd, she left a single sentence on the kitchen table. Don't throw your life away for someone like him. Hae-won looked at the paper, then crumpled it, because someone like him had done more for her heart than any praise or prize ever had. The following Friday, they returned to the auditorium stage. Empty now. No audience. No lights. Just the 2 of them. And a promise. I've been working on something, Joon-ha said, picking up his guitar. She looked at him. Another song? He nodded. A duet. She hesitated, then smiled. I'll sing it. The new song was unlike anything they had sung before. It didn't start with a bold chorus or a romantic hook. It began with silence, then a single guitar string. Bare, hesitant, real. Joon-ha had written the lyrics late one night, alone in his apartment. He had almost deleted them, thought they were too honest, too revealing, too raw. But then he remembered Hae-won's voice, and how it had made even the darkest lyrics sound like healing. He printed the sheet, folded it in half, handed it to her in silence. She unfolded it slowly, eyes scanning each word. The first line made her breath catch. You don't need to be perfect to be good. She looked up. Is this about us? He shrugged, like it didn't matter. But it did. She touched the edge of the paper gently. I want to sing it. At the next festival. His eyes widened. You sure? She nodded. It's time. But the path to that moment wouldn't be easy. News of their disciplinary review had already spread. The student council was hesitant to approve them for the summer talent showcase. Parents had started whispering at PTA meetings. One of Hae-won's former teachers privately warned her not to sacrifice her image for someone else's redemption arc. She smiled politely, then walked out of the office without saying a word. Joon-ha saw the weight on her shoulders. He hated that loving him made her carry more than she should. But every time he offered to step back, she refused. You don't get to erase yourself, she said. Not even for me. They practiced every evening after school, quietly, away from the gossip, away from the stares. In the music room, Hae-won would sing softly as Joon-ha adjusted chords. She had never sung publicly before him, not once. Her voice had always been hidden behind expectations, behind modesty, behind fear. But with him, she found courage. He never interrupted, never corrected, never demanded. He simply listened. And in that, she bloomed. One night, as they left the school building together, Joon-ha stopped suddenly by the front gates. Can I ask you something? She turned. Of course. If you had known everything about me from the start, would you still have chosen me? She looked at him, really looked, at the boy who walked in silence, who carried rumors like armor, who had been judged without being asked a single question. Then she said quietly, I didn't fall in love with what you did. I fell in love with why you did it. He looked away, swallowing hard. She reached for his hand. And I'd choose you again. Every time. The showcase approval finally came, not from the teachers, but from the students. A petition had circulated, over 100 signatures. Messages like, they deserve a voice. That song helped me when I needed it. Let them sing. The council relented, and the announcement was made. Final performance of the night. Shin Hae-won and Lee Joon-ha. The night of the showcase arrived. The school auditorium was full again, this time with even more pressure, more eyes, more judgment. Hae-won stood backstage, hands cold, heart racing. Joon-ha adjusted his guitar strap beside her, quieter than usual. You okay? He asked. She nodded, then laughed nervously. I've never done this before. He stepped closer, tilted his head down so only she could hear. Then we'll do it scared. She smiled. The lights dimmed. Their names were called. They stepped onto the stage, not as the perfect girl and the expelled boy, but as two people who had found something they didn't think they deserved. Acceptance. The crowd hushed. A spotlight warmed their skin. Joon-ha strummed the first chord. Hae-won stepped to the mic and sang. Her voice was clear, unshaken, pure. When she hit the chorus, the entire room was still. You don't need to be perfect to be good. You don't need to be loud to be heard. You don't need to be brave to begin. Just begin. When the last note faded, the room remained in silence for one heartbeat too long. Then the applause came, deafening, roaring. Some students stood. Some teachers wiped their eyes. Even the principal gave a slow nod of approval. And in the middle of it all, Joon-ha leaned in again and kissed her. This time, no one gasped. This time, they clapped louder. After the performance, they were surrounded. Friends, strangers. Even the head of student council came to thank them. You changed something tonight, she said. For a lot of people. Hae-won glanced at Joon-ha. We're just tired of hiding. The next day, her mother found performance online. Hae-won expected another lecture, a silent dinner, a cold wall, but instead, her mother placed her phone on the table and pressed play. Together, they watched. When it ended, her mother simply said, "You look like yourself." It wasn't an apology, but it was a beginning. In the weeks that followed, the whispers faded. People stopped defining Joon-ha by his past and started seeing him for his presence, for his music, for his calm, steady loyalty. Hae-won, once known only as the school's perfect daughter, became something more, a girl who chose her truth. Together, they walked through the halls, not as rebels or victims, but as equals. They joined the music club, started helping younger students write lyrics, and on the wall of the practice room, they wrote the chorus of their song in black marker. Nobody needs to be perfect to be good. The summer heat settled over Hanseo High like a slow, heavy sigh. Fans buzzed in every classroom. Students fanned themselves with notebooks. Clubs moved meetings outside, chasing every patch of shade under courtyard trees. And for the first time in her life, Shin Hae-won wasn't spending her vacation buried in extra credit projects or leadership programs. She was writing songs and spending every afternoon with Lee Joon-ha. They had become the most talked about couple at school, not because they flaunted it, but because no one could believe it. Hae-won, once the symbol of perfection and obedience, now laughed loudly in the cafeteria, sang freely in the music room, and walked beside a boy whose past no longer defined him. Even teachers had softened. Mr. Beck, their homeroom teacher, had once warned Hae-won to stay focused. Now, he nodded at her every morning with something that looked suspiciously like pride. "You've grown, Shin," he muttered one day, before walking off. She smiled to herself, because he was right. But growth came with questions. One afternoon, while organizing instruments in the practice room, Joon-ha asked something that had been lingering between them for weeks. "Do you ever think we're just temporary?" She froze. He kept his voice light, but his eyes were serious. "Like maybe when school ends, whatever this is, won't survive the real world?" She looked at him. "We're not a distraction from the real world," she said. "We're part of it. But things change. Then let them." She stepped closer. "I don't know what's going to happen, but I know I want you in whatever future I get." His jaw tightened. He looked down. "Even if that future's messy?" She reached up and cupped his face gently. "Especially if it's messy." A week later, Joon-ha got a letter. It wasn't thick or dramatic, just a plain white envelope with the crest of his old school in the corner. He hesitated to open it. Hae-won sat beside him on the rooftop, legs dangling off the edge. "Do you want her to read it?" He shook his head, then tore it open. Inside was a simple message. "Your record has been reviewed. The expulsion has been reclassified as a voluntary withdrawal due to disciplinary misunderstanding. You're eligible to transfer credits without penalty." He stared at it for a long time, then handed it to her. She read it twice, then looked at him. "You're free." He didn't smile. "It doesn't erase anything." "No," she agreed, "but it means people finally see what I saw from the start." And for the first time, he let himself smile. With his name cleared, the shift at school was immediate. He was invited to join the student council music committee. The vice principal even asked him to help arrange the winter performance lineup, and one of the underclassmen wrote him a letter. "Thank you for protecting your friend. You made me brave enough to speak up too." He showed it to Hae-won. She cried. He didn't say anything, just held her. Summer turned to fall. The leaves around Hanseo High turned gold. University entrance exams loomed. Students buzzed with anxiety. But Hae-won had never felt calmer, because this time she wasn't applying to prove anything. She was applying for herself. She'd chosen a university with a music program, something she never would have dared a year ago. And Joon-ha, he submitted his portfolio too. Not just music, but essays, lyrics, reflections on his past. "It won't be easy," he said one night. "Some people won't let go of what I was. Then remind them of who you are now." But not everyone was ready to move on. A former student from his previous school had transferred into Hanseo High without warning. Kim Min-chan. Tall, smug, all swagger. The moment he stepped into the cafeteria and locked eyes with Joon-ha, the air shifted. Didn't expect to see you here, Min-chan sneered. Joon-ha's body went still. Hae-won saw the tension in his jaw, the way his fingers curled. She stepped between them. Is there a problem? Min-chan looked her up and down. So you're the girl who fell for the school thug. Joon-ha moved, fast, but she caught his hand before he could take a step. No, she said. I'm the girl who sings with someone brave enough to protect others. Min-chan scoffed. Still full of that hero complex, huh? Joon-ha looked him straight in the eye. I'd do it again. And then walked away. The confrontation sent ripples through the school. Old rumors resurfaced. But this time, people defended him. She's not wrong. He's not the villain here. Honestly, that other guy's the one acting like a jerk. And Hae-won? She stood taller. Because the truth was finally louder than the lie. Winter came quickly. Finals. Farewells. Future plans. On the last day of the term, the school held its annual year-end open stage. A chance for any student to perform, say goodbye, or simply be seen. The sign-up sheet filled quickly. Hae-won and Joon-ha were last to write their names. New song, he asked. She shook her head. Our song. He smiled. When the lights came on and the first chord played, the entire room hushed. They didn't wear costumes. No dramatic effects. Just 2 microphones. 1 guitar. 1 truth. You don't need to be perfect to be good. As they sang, the crowd began to sway. Some students sang along softly. Others closed their eyes. And when the last note faded, they stood clapping, whistling, cheering. But this time, there was no kiss. Just a look between them. A look that said everything. We made it. After the show, Mr. Beck found them backstage. You planning to sing at university too? He asked gruffly. Hae-won grinned. Maybe, if they'll have us. Joon-ha handed him a copy of the lyrics. Mr. Beck didn't smile, but he took it. I'll keep this. Remind myself what real bravery sounds like. That night, under the streetlights, Joon-ha walked Hae-won to her bus stop. Snow had just begun to fall. Soft, quiet, clean. She looked up. Do you realize it's been exactly a year since we met? He blinked. I thought it was longer. She laughed. Feels like it, right? Then she grew serious. Thank you for choosing to stay. He looked at her, expression unreadable. Thank you for seeing past everything. She tilted her head. So what happens next? He thought for a second, then smiled. We keep singing. Graduation came faster than anyone expected. One day, they were rehearsing for midterms. The next, they were measuring their caps and gowns and filling out yearbook pages with trembling pens. Hanseo High's courtyard bloomed with final goodbyes, students snapping selfies, hugging teachers, scribbling last-minute notes in uniforms covered in signatures. And through it all, Shin Hae-won and Lee Joon-ha walked side by side. No longer rumors. No longer rebels. Just the couple. Quiet and real. The ceremony took place under an open sky. Sunlight filtering to the pale silk tent stretched across the school field. Rows of students in matching robes. Parents in folding chairs. Teachers in proud lines. Joon-ha stood in the back row, fingers tapping the edge of his program, eyes scanning the crowd for Hae-won. She appeared at last, dressed in the same uniform gown, but glowing with something stronger than pride. Peace. She found him instantly and smiled. When her name was called to deliver the student speech, the murmurs around the tent grew louder. Some remembered the kiss from the spring festival. Others whispered about the rumors, the reviews, the performance that had rewritten everything. But she stood at the podium, calm as ever, and began. I used to believe that being good meant being perfect, that if I followed the rules, smiled at the right times, said the right words, I'd be safe. She looked across the sea of faces. But perfection is a cage, and goodness isn't obedience. Goodness is truth. It's choosing kindness when it's hard. It's seeing the worst in someone's past and believing in their future anyway. She paused. Her eyes found Joon-ha in the back. I learned that from someone who taught me how to be brave. Not loud, not reckless, but brave enough to care, even when it hurts. She bowed, and the crowd, stunned silent for a beat, rose in applause. Not polite, not mandatory. Real. After the ceremony, students flooded the courtyard. Families gathered for photos. Teachers handed out final envelopes. Hae-won found Joon-ha leaning against a cherry blossom tree near the west gate, the place they first spoke without arguing. He was holding something, a journal, her old music notebook. I thought you lost that, she said. He handed it to her. Open it. She did. The last page had new lyrics, written in his handwriting, messy and slanted. If you sing beside me, I'm not afraid of silence. If you walk beside me, I'm not afraid of storms. If you stay beside me, I'm not afraid of who I was. She looked up, eyes shining. You wrote this? He nodded. For university. You applied? Same one as you. She blinked. You got in? He smiled. They want both of us. Music and lyrics. Voice and melody. Her hand flew to her mouth. I can't believe it. I can. He stepped forward and took both her hands. They didn't kiss. Not this time. They just stood there, robes sway in the wind, surrounded by noise and light and life, and held on. 3 months later, they sat side by side in a small campus studio, tuning a shared guitar, scribbling new ideas onto blank pages. New voices filled the room, new names, new dreams. But when they sang together, everything made sense, because the world had always tried to label them. Good girl, troubled boy, role model, delinquent, but none of it mattered anymore. Now they were something else entirely, a harmony. Back in Korea, the wall of the music room still held their lyrics. Nobody needs to be perfect to be good. Some said the couple who wrote that line had vanished after graduation. Others said they were writing music overseas. But the truth? They never disappeared. They just kept singing, together,